Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021 and the name of the show is Babylon 5. This is season 2, episode 16. It's called In the Shadow of Z'ha'dum. So full spoilers for the episode as always. This was fantastic, Tara, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's pretty good. Actually, I started watching the wrong episode, and I'm glad that we were doing this one instead, because this one's much better.
Oh, great. Well, I'm looking forward to next week now.
I watched like half of it.
Oh, dear. Well, I'm excited for the next episode, clearly, after that. But this, I mean, you know it's going to be semi-important because Morden only shows up in at least semi-important episodes. But there's a great moment early on in this episode that kind of sets up that we're really going to dive into that as a subject. And there's a moment where I let out like a laugh, but not because it was a funny moment and not because it was unintentionally funny or anything like that. It was more a sort of ho 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 ho, like it was an excited laugh. It was like a we're digging into this.
You turned into Santa Claus.
A little bit. It's the moment where Sheridan's talking about his wife and he's sorting through her things, and Garibaldi just casually goes up and says, "Hey, can I look through the manifest of the ship or whatever?" And he's like, "Yeah, whatever, sure. There's nothing personal in there anyway." And because the camera follows Sheridan, you know, my filmmaking brain's like, there's going to be someone Garibaldi recognizes in a second, and probably we recognize. But it never occurred to me it was going to be Morden for whatever reason. I thought it was just going to be like, it would set up the plot of the episode, but I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. And he's like, "Hey, I've seen this guy." And Sheridan looks over and the camera goes over, and when I saw Morden's face, I let out this noise because I was so excited by the prospect that now there's a reason for Sheridan and the other characters to look into him, and I got excited by that, and it was like, yes, here we go. And the fact that it's such a personal reason as well, that this is like, this guy survived something that his wife did not, when as far as Sheridan knew, everyone on that ship died. Super interesting stuff, and obviously we get into some nice debates between the characters this episode. There's some big mythology stuff from Delenn and Kosh, which really even brings it to some questions about the Vorlons that I have now. Huge things. This is definitely a big episode, maybe the biggest we've had this season in terms of just being an absolute. Well, actually, no, that's not true because the one that started the war was this season. But since then, it's the biggest. It even has a fantastic callback to that episode in this one as well. So I suppose we'll get into it. How are you enjoying how I don't give a shit attitude that Veer has when he's addressing Morden now?
Oh, totally. I mean, it says a lot about Veer's character, since he knows that Morden is responsible for the war, and like he's obviously a very powerful person with a lot of connections. So it's very dangerous for him to talk to him like this. But I think we've seen Veer go through so much struggle that he is just like, screw it, like I'll just say what I think, and if I get killed doing it, like my life is miserable right now, so fine. Yeah, it is what it is. There's
some bravery, and I particularly like that Morden hits him with the "What do you want?" Like, you know, I've asked, you know, I know what Londo wants, but what do you want? And Londo's off station, he's not here, and Veer's like, I want to see you girls coming to you. I want you to die, and I want the last thing you to see is for me to be going like this and like giving him a little wave. And then he said he does it again, like when he's leaving, he's like, "Hey, Mr. Morden," just sort of like teases it again. And now all I want is that if Morden eventually does snuff it on this show, I want Veer to be there just so he can do his little wave. But I mean, Veer's obviously been dead set against a lot of the decisions that Londo's made since everything with Morden and Londo's like connection has been introduced, and to see him kind of stuck in this place where he knows maybe not all the details, but he knows the broad strokes of what's going on. He's seeing it, and to have him just kind of rebel a little bit and make it very clear that he's not pretending to put up with this shit. Like, he has to do it because it's his job, and he knows he's stuck in this place, but he's not going to pretend. He's not going to act scared or anything. He's just,
Yeah.
so.
I'm sure he does it also for Londo, because I think he still, has like this camaraderie with Londo. Since Londo's done a lot for him also.
And I think much like us, Veer probably hopes that deep down Londo's still got good in him that might be able to come back or shine through in some way at some point.
Yeah, he's just too tempted, too seduced by the dark side.
It's one of those things where having a character, and this shows up a lot in good writing, but when we can align, the audience can align how we feel with a character. So we are kind of like Veer, and like with Londo's at his worst. We feel the worst with Londo right now, but there's that hope, and that's what making you stick through him. So stick through it,
especially
with him,
the last episode too, where he was just playing politics.
Yeah, he was terrible last episode.
Oh, stop being gross, Londo. We know you're better than this.
Yeah. So that scene was really cool stuff. And we get the setup that there's a lot of Narn showing up to the station and refugees, specifically ones who are like just out of battle, seemingly, where a lot of them are in critical condition, mildly injured or whatever. And Sheridan wants to help them all, but eventually Garibaldi says to him, look, we just don't have the capacity to deal with this many Narn. Like, we're going to have to ship some of them away. And he says, okay, like, whoever's got like minor injuries, like, you can ship them off fairly quickly, but all the criticals still go to medbay. And Franklin's exhausted dealing with it as well. We'll get to like his 1 or 2 scenes later, but so that's kind of the backdrop of the episode. But it really becomes about Mordin. It becomes what once Garibaldi recognizes him and says he's there, and Sheridan's like, no, he died on the ship with my wife. Like, of course he did. And I think what I like most about this episode, other than obviously the huge mythology, like info dumps we get that are super interesting and exciting later on, is just the progression of everything with how he interacts with Mordin. And, so Mordin tries to leave. What is it? Zach, I would say? The sort of second in command, the security guy.
Yeah, I guess he's replaced the First Blood guy. Yeah,
he has, yeah. So they switched them out for whatever reason. I guess they realized Garibaldi was going bald, and they thought, no, we need to get rid of this other bald guy. We can't have 2 bald guys on the show. We gotta get rid of him and bring in someone with hair.
That's not fair. That's discrimination.
I agree.
If this were a Centauri-based show, they would both be revered.
Fair point. So they stop him from leaving, and it cuts to Sheridan just sitting there with his feet up, and he's just got this smug look, and he shows him a photo of his wife, and he's like, is this supposed to mean something? And Mordin's got that smile that he puts on, and he's very know-it-all, he's very slimy, he thinks he can get out of any situation. And then he plays some footage of the log of the ship that he was on, the Icarus, I think. Was it Icarus? I might be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Icarus?
Yeah, it was Icarus.
Okay.
Like sunshine.
And he's like, oh yeah, she wanted me to explain. So yeah, I was the only survivor, I was outside the ship, I don't remember it. Very convenient, he doesn't remember anything. And like I got an F yeah kind of pop. Now it's obviously Sheridan does go through a period in this episode where he's going too far and he's kind of ignoring the rules and he's kind of going off the deep end a little bit. And understandably to a point, because he's got someone in a cell that either knows what happened to his wife, might have even
could be responsible.
Yeah, could have be responsible, or in the really long shot, it might mean she's alive too if someone else is alive from that ship. So you kind of understand it, but he does go off the deep end later. But I had like a proper like F yeah pop, internally. I'm not someone who emotes too much. I'm not like.
You are British.
Yeah, but I had like a hell.
Keep it all in.
I had a pop inside when he tells his story about how he survived, and Sheridan just immediately says, "You're lying," and someone calling out Mordin like this, just so blatantly into his face, was exciting. It was like, obviously I'm excited that he's in the crosshairs of the main characters finally, after being this kind of elusive, shadowy, no pun intended, figure going around the station from time to time. Having like Sheridan, with all of his determination and like we know what his beliefs and goals are and who he is as a person, having him just say, no, I don't buy this for a second, you're full of bullshit, just so blatantly like that was like exciting. It was like, oh my god. What's so good about this is that they've spent time setting up these two characters that when they eventually cross paths like this, immediately it feels riveting when they start clashing, and because they're both acting in character the way we'd expect them to, it feels true to both of them. But it's just, I don't know, there's something really fundamental about just finally having someone say, I don't believe you. You're lying. And from there
I agree. It's very much like Morden is like he's not even really trying to lie all that hard. Like he kind of sounds like he doesn't really believe what he's saying either. But I mean, maybe you could play it off like, oh well, he has amnesia and that's why he doesn't remember. But at the same time, there's this smile behind his speech that is always there, that maybe it's not visible, but you can tell that he's holding something back.
Smugness is a smug quality.
Sure.
Yeah. And he tries to break through his story, poke holes in it, and then we find out that he's had him for like 10 hours, and we know he's not charged him with anything because he's not broken any crimes. And Garibaldi's like, I've let this go on long enough. We haven't charged him with anything. We have to let him go. And Sheridan does bring up an interesting point. As far as the government are concerned, this guy's dead. Technically, he doesn't own any rights.
Yeah, but it's still crosses an ethical thing.
Oh, for sure. Like I think Talia puts it best later in the episode where she says you're following the letter of the law to avoid the spirit of it. And she's right. That is exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to find this weird loophole just to do what he wants. As much as we want to see Morden be broke down, as much as we're kind of rooting for him to do what he's doing, ultimately, you've held this man for 10 hours with no charge. This is very dodgy and suspicious and against your code and everything else. And Garibaldi makes a stance and says, look, I can't let this go on, so either you let him go or I have to resign. This is just how it is. And he does. Sheridan won't do it, and he gives him his communicator and his gun and leaves. Garibaldi, a man of principle, never let it be said otherwise. And
well, he did some kind of not so principled things in the first season, but that's okay.
He did. He
was off duty.
He admits that he plays fast and loose from time to time, but this is just a clear betrayal of the basic rules.
I don't think for a second that the JMS thinks that we were supposed to forget what happened in the first season with the wishy-washy law breaking that may have occurred, but it's all right.
Yeah. But I like that Ivanova also tries to talk him out of it and says, because she's not really been involved in this plot, but she comes into it after finding out and says, look, I'm second in command. If you're doing something irrational, I'm the one who has to kind of make the call and kind of take you off duty effectively. And he gives this great speech about how, look, this man might have murdered my wife, or might at least know what happened to her, or might even prove that she's still alive in some capacity. Like, could you let him go? And it's the sort of thing where at this point in the episode, he's doing the wrong thing. There's no doubt that he is breaking the rules here, and that this is a complete betrayal of someone's rights.
Yeah, you understand his motivation for it, and you also are on his side because we know who Morden is. But if we didn't know who Morden is, it would be a lot more like, ooh, Sheridan, I don't know.
And I think that's part of the beauty of this episode, is that ultimately what gets him to let him go is he does find out what we know. In fact, he finds out more than we knew before, because we learn more when we get the explanation. And as a result of that, it's like, no, now he understands the threat that he is. But he has this great idea, though. He calls for Talia. I love this. He calls for Talia and he says, look, you're going to scan him. And she's like, no, he has to agree to that. I can't just break that rule.
Yeah. We have laws.
Yes. But I did kind of love that he has this idea. He's like, all right, let's move the prisoner from this cell to that cell. And, Zach's like, okay, sir. He's like, and, while we're at it, make sure we escort Talia through here. It's like, but that means they'll cross each other in the hall. I'm counting on it. It's the idea that she'll sense something or see something that she won't be able to, hide or ignore or something. And sure enough, like immediately, like she sees like almost the shadowy version of him where he's in darkness, and he even catches a glimpse of the two shadows that are next to him that seem to always be with him. You know, this episode definitely, because we saw him talking to these shadows before once. Now this seems to imply that they're always there, and even Delenn says later, I think, he's never alone, I think was the line. And Talia, you know, knowing full well that Sheridan has done this, like set her up to like have this encounter, slaps him plainly across the face.
Yeah, that was full contact.
Yeah, to which he says, "I guess I had that coming." And yeah, I mean, he did play her dirty. I mean, there's no denying that. Like,
yeah, I mean, we like these kind of episodes, you know, the ones that where the characters we like sort of backed into a corner where we want them to do the right thing, but they sort of do the wrong thing for the right reason.
I think much like everything else we've been saying about Sheridan doing what he's doing this episode, when he comes up with the plan to have Talia interact with Morden in the hallway, we're happy about it, I think, because we're excited. We're like, oh yes, like what is she going to see? What evidence is she going to get that shows who he is or what he's up to? Because this is the thing, the episode goes on for a long time where Sheridan only is interested in him because of his connection to his wife's ship, and he doesn't know about the connection to anything that's going on in the war or Londo, and it's not until Veer shows up, and at first, you know, Sheridan's like, oh, I don't have time for this, Veer, what is it, make it quick. And immediately he's like, I'm here to talk about Mr. Morden, and his face just immediately changes. It's like, wait, what? Why? Yeah. How do you know who that is? What is this? And I mean, at first I thought Veer had heard that he was here and wanted to offer some like advice, because we know how Veer feels about him. But but he's actually here because Londo's found out that he's been detained, and they're asking him to be released under diplomatic immunity. I don't think people who watch the Babylon 5 reviews, if this is all you watch from us, you've ever heard me do diplomatic immunity. It is a homage to the excellent Lethal Weapon 2. You're welcome. But
I've seen that movie.
It's a good movie, isn't
it? Yeah, I wonder if since Delenn and Kosh, like, we don't know, we haven't gotten to that part yet, but like since they know about Mr. Morden, if they know about Londo's connection to him, because now Sheridan knows.
Yeah, I wonder if like, do they know now because Sheridan can connect those dots together, or do they know already because they can sort of make some educated guesses based on what the Minbari all of a sudden are able to do, kind of thing. Like, couldn't they just kind of assume that based on what's happening?
Right.
Because they seem to have enough knowledge about the shadows that they could probably figure out that the Minbari are the ones that they're kind of aligning with.
That is a thing that I still have questions about. Like, I hope that the show answers it, because I know I brought it up before when Sinclair showed back up in that episode. Like, how do they have all this information? And like, we still don't know who their like informant is, or they know about the Icarus. Kosh seems to be able to show some sort of like memory or footage of it, but like I still don't understand exactly how they have all this info. And you know, maybe they'll explain it. I hope that they do, because it's just something that I think about when I watch these episodes.
Well, we're not there yet, but I don't understand why you don't understand why they don't have the info. Like, Delenn clearly says in this episode, the Minbari fought in the war with the ancient race that fought the shadows. So presumably it's just been passed down from...
No, I'm not talking about like that information. I mean, like, the information of what's going on in the station with Mr. Morden, what's going on, like, in general with the shadows coming back, what's going on with the Icarus and their connection. Like, that stuff I'm not really sure, I guess.
Well, I don't know about Icarus, but Morden's easy to explain. Kosh ran into him. He knows who he is. He had an encounter. Even Delenn did as well, because he came to speak to Delenn. And I think, you know, Delenn's reaction to him in that scene where she got, you know, in season 1 where she got very upset.
Yeah, the tattoo showed up.
Yeah. Like, that makes way more sense now, because she understands the context of what he represents and who he represents. Like, she doesn't know it at first. She doesn't know who he is as soon as he walks in. It's not until she has that moment where she's truly horrified and something tells her, in that this is who he's representing. Yeah. I don't know, I've never really thought about this too much. It doesn't really bother me.
I know. We talked about it before within this Claire episode, and you got pissed off at me. But I'm saying,
I'm
like,
not pissed off.
Hey, I know what you're like.
I'm not pissed off. I'm not pissed off. Okay. Anyway, just to go back to where we are in the episode, because I really love this stuff with Veer, because Sheridan's reaction to, like, wait, why do you know about Mr. Morden? What is this? Like, what? And he's like, diplomatic community, like, Londo wants him to be released. And all of a sudden it's like, well, there's more to this guy than I thought, because why is the Minbari all of a sudden, the Centauri, why is the Centauri all of a sudden trying to stick up for him? And then, Talia's thing happens, and her reaction is, she has this essentially, like, episode where she screams and faints, and she talks about how she saw two shadows, and that means something to Sheridan. He's not in the room when she says that, admittedly. Presumably Zach's just going to report everything back as he's there. But, this clearly, again, indicates there's something more to this than what he's even speculating. Like, he thinks there's some sort of conspiracy with his wife's ship. And that's true, but it's bigger than that. It's way bigger than that. And it's right at this point when Delenn and Kosh, side by side, might I add, which is interesting because Kosh is someone who shows up alone typically, right? Delenn will often show up with another person, whether it be Lanier, or maybe she's behind out with someone else and she'll show up, but Kosh is a loner.
Kosh needs a translator because he only speaks in riddles, and that's what Delenn is there for, I think, to be his translator.
Well, it's not really a translator. He doesn't really say anything. She's just there to be the main communicator.
Yeah.
But they come to him and say, look, this guy you've got, you need to release him now or we're all in grave danger. And of course Sheridan's like really adverse to this and says, I won't do it without answers. I'm not going to just trust you. Like, you're going to have to tell me something here. So they go to quarters, hers I think maybe, and they have this conversation where we learn so much about what's going on in so many ways. And I think the idea that Delenn and Kosh are like, allied on this, and she even brings up that scene in season 1 where she asks Lanier to go and speak to him, and it, because we never heard the question, we have Sheridan ask on behalf of the audience, what was the question? What did he say yes to? And it was, have the shadows returned? And we find out there used to be ancient beings, what she calls the first ones, I think, or something to that effect, and they, walked the galaxies, stood tall. They were beings of, greatness that we can't comprehend. But there was a war with a race that were even older than them, which they only know as the Shadows. They have no other word for them. And there was a big fight 10,000 years ago where they were defeated but not destroyed. And then again, more recently, 1,000 years ago, in the more recent time, only a few of the first ones remained. But those fought alongside the Minbari to beat the Shadows back, and they won. And after that, all but one of the ancient ones, the first ones, sort of, went to beyond, went to their afterlife, except one. And he's like, well, which one remained? And then they sort of both turn and look at Kosh, and which is interesting in of itself. So Kosh is this ancient first of, he's the last of his kind, but they were the first race, right? The first question I have then, though, are the Vorlon a made-up race? Like, have they ever seen another Vorlon?
Mm-hmm.
Is Kosh the only one? Is it just part of a cover story? And obviously he's got ships.
Is he an ambassador to nothing?
Yeah, it's all just he's not even an ambassador technically at that point. It's all just a cover story so he can get close and be involved in everything going on. Like, do the race of Vorlons even exist? Or is it a real race where he's just pretending to be one of them? Because part of me was thinking, like, because they always hear but they can never get inside the Vorlon ships, they never get allowed to, they're very cagey, don't really communicate much. The fact that they have an ambassador here from the Vorlons is a big deal. I was thinking, like, is this just all a ruse? Is he the only one? It's just a made up thing to hide the fact that he is this other thing. And then the real interesting phrase that gets mentioned is that, that's why he can't wear the suit, is because, like, he would be recognized, and when Sheridan asks by who, Kosh says everyone, and there's a scene in this episode between two other characters, between Franklin and Ivanova, talking about God, and I couldn't help but when I couldn't
that's
help
what I was thinking when he said that.
because what would the humans recognize? Like they wouldn't recognize anything.
Something like ancient story wise.
Like, and it's not so much that he is literally God, as in he's the God, but more that his race of beings, because they're so old, because they predate everything so much, would be considered gods, and there'd be something to recognize in him, I guess. If they, God is often, like, will be visualized with light, and the one glimpse we've seen of Kosh, like, under the suit is light, right? Or light moving behind the curtain or whatever. Those are the few examples we've had. So it's not so much that the show is presenting him as the literal god. It's more that, in the same way that Ironheart became like a higher being, that this race of beings were of a higher standard or higher, they
have ascended.
Yes, they ascended. Yes, they ascended to a higher plane of existence. It was kind of really, that was like a fascinating detail. But even just the idea that the Minbari are the ones who have actually been involved in the war before, which suddenly explains why Delenn and the Minbari in general do have more information on the Shadows than any other race do.
You know what this episode reminds me of?
Yes.
You're going to hate it.
Oh, God.
But it reminds me a lot of Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of, like... I mean, even the... I knew you were going to hate it. But the Vorlons sound exactly like wizards to me from Tolkien's universe. And even the name of the planet sounds like Khazad-dûm, which is... Or no, is it? Yeah, Khazad-dûm. Yeah. Sounds like the planet. There's some parallels here. That's
Sure.
what I'm saying.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised if JMS is an old Lord of the Rings nerd who read them all before there was movies.
He absolutely is.
Yeah.
This is not the first time there's been... I think he quoted Gandalf in one of the episodes.
Yes, but okay, we've addressed it. We can move on, right? We've acknowledged it. We can move on. Yeah, but basically the point of this series, to make it clear, is that the reason why they lost last time, the reason why the Shadows lost last time is because they moved too quickly. So they're being very coy this time, and if we hold Morden, they're going to know. Like they're going to figure out that we know a lot more than they think we do. And that will maybe change plans, and maybe we don't have time to prepare in that sense. And
we're not ready for war with the ancient evil.
Yeah, and in the middle of all this, like Kosh has some either footage or maybe like a recreation of what probably happened, and we actually get to see a shadow like unshadowed, if that makes sense. We get to see a being in this footage or imagery where. Yeah, the ship.
They have spooky eyes.
Yeah, the ship that Sheridan's wife was on, the Icarus, that was a science vessel, or an archaeology vessel, and it was going to look into this planet, Zadum, which is the planet that also, and I'm glad they've because I wouldn't have remembered this, but this is the planet that Jakar has been saying's like.
That's where
trouble.
he went in the pilot episode, right? Not pilot, the season premiere. That's where he was. Wasn't he exploring that planet? Yeah,
he was going to check it. Yeah, and all of his like fellow Narn got killed in the way, but he just barely survived and got back. Yeah, and that's where they're sort of like hiding, and it makes us think that instead of the ship just exploding on the way there or the way back, like clearly, they got Morden on board, right? Either through just because he's awful and he was willing to do it, or they did some fancy mind stuff with him.
I think. Oh well, they said like the ones that refused to help them, they killed, and then the ones that were willing to work with them, they spared or something.
Which makes you wonder, like,
she's definitely alive. She's absolutely 100%. She's alive.
I wasn't going to ask that specifically.
I'm saying it now.
Okay, but it answers the question technically. But I was going to say it makes you wonder: is he really the only one who made that choice? Is there others who are helping them from that ship that are still alive?
There was like 100 and something people.
Yeah, 140 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting. That's an interesting question. A
lot of people who don't want to die.
Yeah, but but I mean, if his wife's as great as he thinks she is or was, then she would have the principles not to like aid these horrible beings in their annihilation of every other race. You know, you would like to think.
She's 100% alive. I'm not even going 99%.
All right, I'll take the bet. I'll say she isn't, just for the fun of it.
Okay. Well, I look forward to taking your money because this is a money bet.
Fine, I will.
It's not a money bet. We don't have money. It'll be something else embarrassing.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to review a certain movie either way on this, depending on which one of us wins.
Ooh.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, we get to see one of these shadow beings. And they're very kind of insectoid, almost not the regular xenomorph, but the alien queen a little bit with the head shape. I thought, a little bit, but super fascinating. And this leads Sheridan to this thing, because obviously he understands the weight now of what this is. Delenne's made her case, Kosh has made his case, and he's talking to Zach, and he actually brings up World War II. He talks about a time where, and I saw the movie about how they cracked the code, the Imitation Game, where they basically invented the computer to crack the code. But you know, they figured out German's code, and they were going to bomb Coventry. I could never have told you it was Coventry they bombed. I just know what Coventry is because I know it's Coventry. But
you're a British person.
Yes.
Aren't you supposed to? Don't they teach you these things?
I'm sure they did, but I didn't remember it.
Too busy watching movies.
A lot of places got bombed in World War II, right? It's hard to keep them all straight. So, but you know, they had to make this choice where, okay, we know they're going to attack Coventry, but if we evacuate, then they'll know that we've cracked their code and they'll stop using it and they'll switch to something else. So we have to choose to let innocent people die in order to maintain our level of control and secrecy so that we can perform a better attack later, so we can formulate better plans and win ultimately the war. And you know, it makes sense why Sheridan's thinking about this particular dilemma, because he's kind of in this place where he has this guy related to the death of his wife. But my favourite part of all this, though, is Delenn bringing up the choice that he gave G'Kar when the episode The War started. I loved her directly saying, look, G'Kar wanted to kill Londo, and you stopped him and you said you have to pick between revenge and doing what's best for your people. And in this case, it's every people. It's not just humans, it's every race. And right now you're faced with that exact same choice. This is one of these things where, you know, if we were sitting analysing this and we could maybe realise, oh, he's in the same position more or less as G'Kar was in that episode when he was really angry. But I love Delenn in this case actually saying, look, you're in this situation now, and now you have to make that choice. And of course, Sheridan is our hero. He's maybe been angry throughout the episode. He's wanted to do a lot of bad things, but he makes the right choice ultimately to let him go, because it does give them this veil of secrecy that they do know more than the shadows perhaps expect at this point. So this is a super important episode, like through and through for this main plot. Like, obviously it's a great character piece for Sheridan. It's great for the mythology of like a bit more context of what the shadows are, a bit more the Kosh mystery kind of thing, which leads to the other scene, of course, where Sheridan goes to Kosh and says, look, you've been training me to sort of understand me better so that I can understand you, but hey, I want you to train me to fight them. Like, how do I fight them? And maybe, you know, maybe it will kill me. Maybe if I go to that planet, I'll die. But, you know, I'm not going to go down easy. I'm going to go down with other people. And, you know, we'll go out fighting. And Kosh agrees. It's maybe the first time Kosh has given him a straight, genuine response to a question. It's just, will you help me fight them? And he just says yes. So it feels like in some level there's like an aligned goal now. So all that stuff's wonderful. I mean, how do you feel about all this mythology? Do you like all this shadows and ancient being stuff?
Hell yeah.
Because
I do. Oh, I like this stuff. I mean, we've been getting little glimpses of it here and there. Hey, you asked me what I think.
No, I was just going to say, I loved the first glimpse of it when G'Kar was talking about it. Remember back in season 1 where he went and saved Sinclair's girlfriend from the big being?
Yeah.
and he talked about how wondrous things in the universe are. Like, that tease was wonderful, so this actually feeding into the idea of ancient beings in space and all that. Love it. So yeah, continue, please. Please.
Yes. Yeah, I like it a lot. Been looking forward to like the bigger picture stuff in the series, getting more mythology and lore. And yeah, this is really cool. Like ancient beings that have, long lived before us and way more technology advanced and ancient wars and yeah, it's cool. Good stuff.
It's funny how much science fiction, space science fiction specifically, tends to fall into the idea that there were ancient races way before we were around. Because it really does paint this idea that...
Well, it's easier to do when you're talking about the cosmos too, rather than
for sure.
Just
but
one planet.
From a thematic point of view, though, I think the reason why it keeps coming up in science fiction is because, that great Carl Sagan speech about the pale blue dot, right, about Earth and how it humbles us because we realise how tiny we are in the universe and we're not really that important and we should get over ourselves a little bit. I think that's what science fiction does with this type of storytelling. Is it's like, no, there were beings long before us. There'll be beings long after us. We are a chapter in the journey of the cosmos, but we are not the important part necessarily. And accepting that is just kind of a humbling thing. And I've been playing Mass Effect again because the remaster came out. Which, by the way, there's a character in that called Morden, and it was really hard not to think about Morden while I was talking about Mr. Morden.
Maybe it was an homage.
It may be a homage. It wouldn't surprise me if the nerds who made Mass Effect referenced Babylon 5. But that deals with ancient races. The Expanse, even, which is a bit more serious and political and gritty, is a sci-fi show. That has the whole idea of there was an ancient war long ago.
Yeah, a lot of sci-fi books deal with it too.
Yeah. So it's this recurring thing in space science fiction, and I think it's fascinating to see how the different properties approach it. So there's
a great book series, the Hyperion series by Dan Simmons, where it's way far in the future, but people go to these there's like these planets that have just like they're not near each other at all, but they have these giant labyrinths like built into them, and they're like, oh, I wonder what ancient space race built those. Like they're not close to each other at all, but like that takes a lot of work to build a big labyrinth into a planet.
Yeah, I like stuff like that. Like, why do these things exist? Like, we've not really gotten to it too much yet in this show, but if we get to if like the reason why certain Minbari technology exists is because we fought in a war against the Shadows, so that's why we had to build.
So they had
X
to
thing.
give him they had to give him more advanced, so they had a chance, or just appropriated it afterwards.
And it makes me think back as well. If you have Kosh's, this ancient race, right? This ancient being. It makes me think, we know his technology, his ship is living. Like, did he, like, what exactly is that then? Did he create the life? Is it, obviously we've had other hints of...
I mean, if people don't really know what the Vorlon look like, but, they've seen evidence of a race rather than just one Vorlon, maybe Kosh, has control of multiple ships and stuff to make it look like there's a race.
Because, we've seen evidence before of, obviously, biological technology. Like that's come up before in the show. Which obviously teased ultimately Koshi's fancy ship with the everything.
Maybe that's left over from the ancient race that they were fighting. Who knows?
Maybe. You mean Koshi's race?
Like the insect thing that embedded in the guy. Yeah, Koshi's race or whatever else was ancient beforehand.
No, it's interesting. It's just there's a lot going on here, and I felt like, well, there's obviously still a lot of questions, and a lot of things still to do. This episode raised so many interesting things. Just be like, okay, right, we kind of already knew this planet was associated with them, but now we have a more defined link to Sheridan because Sheridan's wife's ship was going there, and that's why it ultimately met its destruction, one way or the other. And that connects him to have a personal vendetta against Morden, and also just this, the Shadows, because they did this. His wife is dead because of them. She's effectively, assuming she's dead, she is the first casualty in many ways of this war. And that's kind of poetic. But do you think she's still okay? All right.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. All right. We'll find out. No one tells in the comments. This is something
No. I don't want to know. I
Yeah.
want to find out.
we'll discover as the show goes on. I'm a little bit worried because it is the sort of thing that like a writer would be tempted to eventually do, but
Oh, come on. I mean, the way they set it up and they talked about it in this show, there's no way she's dead.
the harsh
It'd
realization.
be too tempting to bring her into the story somehow.
But the harsh realization that she's actually been dead the whole time, and he has to accept that still because she was a good person.
That would be great.
because
yeah.
she wouldn't give in and like turn coat.
Right. I think that would be great. That would be ballsier. I think
Mm-hmm.
having her alive is like the obvious choice now.
I mean, I think this show's made some ballsy choices before. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things in it that feel typical of TV as well, but I don't think it's against this show's nature to do a ballsy thing.
I don't think so either. They made Londa the bad guy.
Yeah,
Pretty ballsy.
very ballsy.
And I think, Bruce Boxleitner was really good in this. This was definitely his
Mhm.
episode, and he had a lot of moments to shine. There's still something there that sounds like he doesn't really believe what he's saying, just like performance wise. It might just be because like I'm comparing it to I don't know how to say his name, Alexander Cutlass or something. To Jakar,
Mhm.
who's like clearly a terrific actor. Like when he has a monologue or a passionate moment, like
Oh,
he
he's
delivers.
Wonderful. I think because I think Sinclair is great in this episode, and I think this really is the
His name's
episode. Sorry, Sheridan. Sorry, Sheridan. I think Sheridan's wonderful in this episode, and
Yeah.
I think obviously he's been growing on us. He's been having moments and like bonding with various crew members and so on over the course of this, because this is episode 16. We're deep into the season now.
Yeah.
But I think this is the episode. I think this is the episode where he goes from being the replacement to, okay, now he's tied into this story in a way that's passionate, a way that connects him emotionally to everything going on, beyond just his sense of doing the right thing, beyond just the sense of
Yeah.
he's going to save everyone.
And he doesn't, he questionably doesn't do the right thing.
Yeah.
I think that's why this episode's so important for him too. There are other episodes of like Star Trek where we see that. It's kind of like in the Pale Moonlight in Deep Space Nine, or a little bit of I don't remember the episode name, but Captain Archer has a lot of these moments where he questionably tortures somebody to get information,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, am I supposed to still like you now because you're sort of like infringing on somebody's rights? And yeah, so this was like bordering on those types of episodes, which I'm always gonna like a little bit, like when someone's not 100% clean.
Yeah.
It makes them more interesting. They can't all be Superman,
Yeah, exactly. Especially when obviously you can still get behind their intentions and why they're doing it. And it is a war. Like things are going to get dark. Like, and that's what's going to sell the war, is that if some of our characters have to like compromise their morals a little bit to win,
True.
then that feels like the cost. That feels like the cost that's been paid in the
Yeah.
war.
Sure. I mean, this does make me go, I don't think I like Churchill anymore, because I don't think it was worth the sacrifice of a city of civilians. I know that the greater good or whatever, but that seems like a pretty big sacrifice.
I mean, I'd have to go back and like research it all again, but I do believe it in a big way did.
I mean, if it was your town, how would you feel about it?
I believe it did result in ultimately the end of the war. So I mean, like,
Sure. I mean, I feel the same way about Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
Sure.
Like, no, not worth it.
Sure. But
It's probably a mistake, even though it did end the war.
it is history at this point, so I don't really think about the
Right.
choice too much anymore. I will say, I mean, Churchill was apparently extremely racist though, so there's lots of reasons to dislike Churchill anyway.
Oh yeah.
But
I do like Darkest Hour though. That was a good movie.
sure, I never saw it, but sure. So no, very good stuff. Main plot is exceptional. Like I was excited the second they showed that someone else other than Londo and Veer were going to interact with Morden, and that, like, Sheridan had a vested interest in it. And then the fact that it then expanded as it went on, where he's still like, wait, why do the Centauri care about him? Oh wait, why does
Yeah, Londo's got some questions to answer
Yeah.
the next time he's with Sheridan, I think.
I mean, I don't know if he's going to outright ask him, but I do think, especially since, like, if they don't want the Shadows to know that they know things, then maybe not revealing to Londo that they know so much is a good idea. But
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I do.
But he's
I suspect tension. I suspect tension in the room when he's staring at Londo, knowing that he's helping the man who might have helped murder his wife. Like, you know, there's going to be. I feel like you're going to be able to cut the tension with a knife. Is my guess.
I mean, they kind of, you know, showed their hand a little bit by trying to get Morden out of the cell.
True.
Now that, you know, other people, Kosh and Delenn and Sheridan all know that he's somehow connected to Morden, or in a way where the Centauri are connected to Morden and they're winning this war.
It raises a lot of questions that they're going to have in their heads, I think, and you know this advances so much as far as the main plot goes. It's really exciting stuff. But there was some other stuff though that we should talk about a little bit. Talia went to a meeting. This guy wants people on Babylon 5 to wear armbands that promote peace.
I suspect something nefarious.
Yeah, I suspect this Night Watch is actually up to no good, but
yeah, I mean, it's just an armband. Like, it's kind of reminiscent of, like, you know, Nazi Germany a little bit, but it seems to be like, we want you to be the neighborhood watch.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we just want you, you know, to promote peace by doing things our way. But I suspect that will escalate to a point where people are given authority to do something that morally gray.
Maybe. I mean, they're paying them 50 credits a week to do it. And that kind of goes.
Is that a lot? I don't know.
I don't know. That goes against what like my theory that I'm about to give you. But I thought maybe it'd be the opposite, where they want all the people who are good to like choose to do this because they're good people, and then that makes them the targets. It's like here, everyone wearing these bands, go kill them, kind of thing. But they're paying them to do it though, which, you know, that filters that out a little bit, because then some people just do it for the money. They're not doing it because they're like, you know, that good that they have to try and promote peace and tranquility.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to be like they're trying to build a loyalty thing inside of Babylon 5. It doesn't seem to be linked to anybody in particular. Like, they've asked, you know, the security guard, they've asked Talia to do
I don't trust him. That's basically it. Like he was trying to be as nice as possible.
Something nefarious is going on here. It's too, like, we're giving away free money. All you have to do is, you know, spread our cult message. Something's going on.
Yeah, and then obviously Franklin is like passing out. Ivanova orders him to get some sleep and then get some food. And then when they're having food, he gets very philosophical about you know, do you believe in God?
Franklin's got to be Franklin here.
Yeah, but this one made more sense than the one last time.
It does, yeah.
At least this time he's like, you know, he's operating constantly on people who are dying, so he's got like a lot of weight in his eyes, and he's talking about, because obviously he starts off very literal, just talking about God, but obviously by the time he gets to the idea where it's like, every time, you know, someone dies in front of me, there's this moment where they look past me as if they're looking at something else, and he describes that as them looking at God. And I don't necessarily take it literally, like he you know, he's thinking they're literally seeing a God being, but whatever they believe to be God, or whatever they believe in seeing death, is kind of like, you know, what he considers to be the God.
Maybe they see Ambassador Kosh.
Maybe. Or maybe they see Lord Kiro, Garrett Graham, or one true Lord and Saviour.
Blessed be Lord Kira.
That's what they see.
He sacrificed himself for our sins in space.
Yes. Also his sins. He was very sinful, I seem to recall, by the time he went down. There was some conspiracies. There was a complicated plot.
He had to get that jewel, that mere bit of jewelry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But notably, that was the episode that introduced Morden and got all this stuff rolling, so...
Yeah, in fact, it was his passion about restoring the Centauri's pride that triggered something in Londo to give the right answer to Morden.
That's a good point. Like, would he have ever given that answer the way he did with that passion had he not just been prompted by that conversation with Lord Kiro?
No, this is all because of Lord Kiro. He's the most important character in the show, obviously.
Well,
I mean, that's why you get Garrett Graham to play him.
Well, what you mean is he's the biggest villain in the show. It's his fault.
He is the the most pivotal character.
He
Yeah.
was a bad influence on poor Londo, and now Londo's like the worst person in the galaxy.
I mean, he's played a lot of villains.
Most notably in Police Academy 6, City Under Siege.
Well, that's not my favorite of his. I have seen it though.
Of course you've seen it. Why wouldn't you have seen it? Phenomenal episode. It's one of those things where it was already great because of Sheridan going after Morden, but as soon as and then the teases with Talia and like Veer establishing the connection to the Centauri, but the moment that the Len and Kosh showed up and were like, look, we're going to have to like fess up some answers here because this is dangerous. It was like, oh, they're actually going to actually get to some answers here. We're not just going to like tease the tension of it. And because I genuinely thought that he was just going to have to eventually let him go, under other reasons.
Oh yeah, I was very surprised, like where the episodes were going, or where this episode was going each time. Like, oh, he's still there. He's still like prodding him, and he's getting more information out of him than I was expecting. I thought, things would stay super secret.
I didn't even mention that, when he's sitting in the cell, he filters through different camera types and filters, and catches a glimpse of the shadows. And it's almost like the final thing that convinces him this is real. Like I just saw it myself. Like he's never alone. So
I like the final shot of Morden like close up in the camera with his like evil grin, like I've won. And I'm pretty sure that's why he was hired. Like it was probably like the test. Like, okay, can you look evil and trustworthy at the same time? You're hired.
Yes. So, it's so rare to get a TV show like this nowadays where you have, the 22 episodes, not that the number's a big deal, but where there's this excitement every, batch of episodes when you get to a really important one like this. It's like so important to the overall story that it's really exciting.
Well, like so many series now are like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
That's all you get. Each one has to be big.
Things have changed so much, and part of the problem with that is that a lot of them won't actually end up being as good as they're supposed to be, and then you end up just feeling kind of like,
right. Or like if every episode is this giant epic, then you don't have time to just like settle in and get to know your characters a bit more.
It doesn't feel special, whereas with this, because you get some episodes that are a bit more low key, where we get to like build the relationships with the characters. So when we do get something like this, it feels like a big deal. And of course the callback, like I say, that callback to Jakar and like Sheridan talking him down, and how it's basically the same thing Sheridan has to go through in this episode is wonderful. And it just shows that
don't focus on revenge.
Now this war has incurred wrath in two of our main characters, and I do wonder, like, is some of our other characters going to go through this? Is Garibaldi going to have a reason to feel this kind of pain as a direct result of this conflict that it's going to get to him? Like, is the woman that he was in love with who ended up marrying someone on Mars, is she going to die, like in some sort of attack from the shadows?
I totally forgot about her. Yeah.
Is that going to be what drives him to like go into this rage, like these other characters? Like, I don't know.
Something could happen to Talia.
Something could happen to Talia, yeah.
I suspect she has a bigger role to play though, since they set up that she's super special psychic abilities.
Yeah, at the very least, we have to have one episode where she starts like moving ships around with her hand or something. She'll do the Neo. She'll like just put her hand out and stop. So there you go. That is In the Shadow of Z'ha'dum. So wonderful episode.
Yeah, pretty good.
Might be this one or the one with the worst starts with the death of the Emperor and all that stuff, and the first proper attacks. It's either this or that one of the best episodes of the season so far. It's hard to pick.
It's hard to beat Alexander's performance in that one. I don't know his last name. I should probably look it up and figure it out. Peter Jurassic is easy to remember.
Yeah, because it's my name plus Jurassic Park. It's just think of me doing my Hammond impression.
Do 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 do.
Spared no expense. Hello, John.
It's perfect.
Hello, John. Hello, John. Hello, John.
Nailed it every time. It's your one good impression.
Esteemed Alan Grant, my dear Dr. Sadler, welcome to Jurassic Park. But yeah, there you go. Wait, what were you saying his first name was? Jakar?
Isn't it Alexander?
It's Andreas. You're completely wrong.
Andreas. Damn it. I've been saying it wrong the whole time. Delete your comments now.
I bet how many comments are already under the video? How many before they get to the end where I actually double checked it?
Oh boy. I'm usually cooking dinner or something when the when the opening credits start. His name, yeah, Andreas Cutlass.
Katsoulis.
Katsoulis.
I don't know why you tried. Why did you try? Just the
AK.
actor playing Jakar. Just say that.
I wanted, I was hoping I'd figure it out by the end. Or like we would have this back and forth and you would be like, oh, you mean this guy? Because you always have IMDb open.
Because sometimes I know it's best not to commit. Because I know I don't know something.
I don't mind putting myself out there like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But please delete all your comments.
They won't. Oh, who's this dumb woman? She doesn't know his name. I don't want to make it fun. We have a lot of wonderful commenters on Babylon 5. I'm not. Please do not take this as me making fun of you people in particular. This is just more of a general YouTube thing that sometimes people love to correct. And
I'm sure there's people who believe that I don't deserve to review this show online, even though I'm just hanging out with my friend talking about a show we watch. Some people will take it seriously.
Oh yes, there is definitely. I mean, in your case, specifically, there'll be a bunch of sexist assholes, sure. But even in general, like every so often, like we'll get a comment saying something. Oh, these two are morons. They don't deserve to be talking about this, or something inane like that.
That's across the board. That's
Yeah.
not just Babylon 5.
Oh, of course, yeah. So hey,
I don't claim to not be a moron. Ever. But I do all right.
If anyone says something like, these two are morons, my usual, I don't usually bother replying because it's not worth the effort, but my usual thought is, but you're spending time watching morons, so what does that make you? So,
Sucker.
thank you very much for joining us, everyone, on that note. You can let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe. It is super important to do. It is how YouTube deems success. And how will we find more people to call us morons if more people don't watch the videos? So please do hit those buttons. Tara, why don't you tell them all about Patreon?
Yep. If you enjoy the reviews, please check out the Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildfuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes for other shows we do, including our science fiction movie review show, The Ace. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these Babylon 5 reviews 1 week early. And you get Twilight Zone a week early, and you get Star Trek a week early. And you get to vote on what movies we watch and be part of our community. So
There you go.
thank you.
Yeah. And Star Trek's not got Tara on it, though. Star Trek is me and
No.
Connor. Just
Except for Picard. We did Picard.
That's true. But all the classic Star Trek.
And half of season 3 of Discovery.
Yeah, but that was a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
Yes, but no, me and Connor started working through Star Trek from the start because neither of us had seen much of it, and we are in season 5 now of Next Gen after having started with the original series. So, big, huge. I mean, there's the original series playlist, which is complete. Every episode's there, and then the playlist for Next Gen is now into season 5. So there's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of content.
The best season, I think. Actually, I don't know. I look fondly on season 5 episodes for the most part.
We have about 22 episodes left, so when I'm done with season 5, I'll tell you if I agree so far.
That kid from Babylon 5 is coming up on the one that was on last week. The little blonde kid from the Psycor commercial.
Oh, the cat. I think they said GIF, and I'm like, the GIF from Battle. What are you talking about?
No, the kid.
The kid. Yes.
Yeah, he's coming up on one of them.
Okay. All right. I look forward to it. Well, there you go.
It's not the greatest episode.
In that case, I don't look forward to it. That has been Babylon 5. This has been a very special episode.
Thank you.
You're on every episode. I'm not saying...
It's not me. It's not my special episode.
You're on every episode. Regardless of how special you may or may not be, it doesn't change the fact.
It is my birthday.
Oh! When I tried to wish you happy birthday earlier, you said, "Oh, it's not past midnight yet. It's not my birthday yet."
It's close enough. It's 10:30.
Yeah. Okay. All right, everyone, wish Tara a happy birthday. She
Thank you.
is X years old.
I mean,
I self-centered.
everybody knows at this point. It's not like you try to cover it up for me, so thanks. Thanks for that.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with your mid-40s, Tara, okay?
You asshole.
I'm all empowered. Someone in the comments on another video said that the old age jokes were getting funny. So there's an audience for it now. They love it. The people love it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So funny.
Thank you once again for joining us, everyone. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just send help if I go missing. You know it's Tara. And also don't give up the home world.